So Neil, can you just give us your 5 second elevator pitch on who you
Oh,
are and what you do?
5 second elevator pitch. All right. Well, let's see here. I am a divorced father of two. Um, I'm also a bank vice president. I've been in the banking field for 17 years now, in multiple very large companies. Uh, Kind of have my hand in a lot of different cookie jars within the financial realm, and no, I am constantly trying to self improve.
Okay.
Let's see here. I've also before the plague, I used to run about 4 triathlons a year,
Wow.
including I've
Really?
done a few of the Ironmans, the 140 milers.
Oh
You've
my,
done an Ironman or you were training for
I've
an
done two
Ironman?
of them.
You've done two
One
of
I
oh
them.
didn't
my
one I
gosh.
didn't finish.
Oh,
One I did.
wow.
For,
Congratulations, man.
for somebody
That's
who's not a
crazy.
runner, that for me it was a very large accomplishment.
Oh, it's an accomplishment for an excellent runner. So can you tell us what some of these cookie jars are in the
Okay,
financial
well,
world?
certainly. Well, let's see here. I started my career in mortgage origination. I kind of went on loss remediation when the economy turned when I guess in the housing crash of 2008. From there, I moved into data management, and then moved into direct management from there. And then I've been in just general management ever since. Uh, moved out of the residential space into a commercial space, um, as well as kind of setting up and building departments from the ground up. So I've kind of have again like a pretty wide array. Plus, my father was a financial analyst as
Hmm.
well as a stockbroker, before he passed, and he taught me a lot of that realm as well.
So do you do a lot of investing on the side?
Not as much as I would like. The company I work for is very particular.
Hmm.
Anytime we do any type of investing, they have to sign off on it. So
Really?
I dot every I and cross every T. So I don't do any type of day trading or anything along those lines. But if I see something that like I really like that I think would be a very a good long-term type of investment, I do dive into that. And go with their permission, of course.
So as a vice president of the bank, are you more managing like bank portfolios and where the money is being lended out and stuff, or are you more managing like people?
For me, it's people.
Okay.
So and honestly, that's what I really enjoy. I like helping people along. I like helping them advance their careers. Maybe helping them avoid some of the pitfalls that I might have fallen into. That type of thing.
Why did you originally decide to go into banking? Was it something that just kind of fell into your lap because of your dad, or was it something that you wanted to pursue yourself all along?
Well, initially when I was in college, psychology was a field that I really enjoyed. Um, but you can't really make any money in that unless you go for a master's or a PhD. I did not have the patience for that. So the closest thing in business to psychology was marketing. So I started going down that path. I didn't necessarily want to be a sales guy. I had done some sales jobs while in college, and that really wasn't my forte, but I was pretty far along in my degree. So I started looking at some of the other aspects that I liked, and I found real estate, and I really enjoyed that. So just whether it be just how the whole thing works, and since I live in Texas, it seemed to be like a pretty good fit.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, I ended up getting a double major in marketing and real estate. And then I started working for a mortgage company straight out of college. So
Oh, that's great.
I was able to kind of blend both majors into what I was doing.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Have you ever heard of wholesale mortgages
Wholesale mortgages.
or
No,
wholesale mortgage brokers? Have you ever heard of that world?
not in a very long time.
Okay.
Everything I got out of the residential aspect of mortgage origination a long time ago.
Hmm.
Um, and after the crash of 2008, they started putting in a lot of a lot of additional regulation that wasn't there to try to avoid that from happening in the future. So a lot of that's going to be out of my area. I would have to do a little bit of research.
Okay.
So what's your work schedule like?
Well,
Pretty long hours?
it's not necessarily long. I mean, it can be. It's
Mhm.
whether it's you work 40 hours a week or work 80 hours a week, you work until the job's done.
Mm.
Mm,
Um, so some of my meetings will start at like 6:30 in the morning because it's, I'm meeting with people who are on the other side of the world. Um, and sometimes, my first meeting won't start till like 10 a.m. It just really depends on the day and the what's going on with the work.
gotcha. You mentioned that you had two kids and were divorced. Uh,
Yes.
my question is, so I've always been like a family man. I want a family, a wife, and kids someday. What was that like? Like, did you already have your career and everything in place before you met her and had kids, or was it something that kind of happened uh
No, it,
after the
um,
fact?
well, not really. I always wanted to be a family man as well. I really enjoy it. I love my kids to death. Started out, I met her my freshman year of college.
Okay.
And we started dating, and then actually we dated for about 9 years, and then got married, and then a good 9 years later, so I was literally with her from 18 to 36, so half of my
Wow.
life
Mm,
at the time. And then we ended up getting divorced at about the 9 year mark of the marriage. You know, unfortunately, sometimes you just grow apart. Nothing bad to say about her. It just didn't work out, and we're very good co-parents on that. So there's
that's
it
good.
really, I guess I've seen some very
Mm.
nasty divorces, but this is about as good of a situation as could be
That's
as
good.
far as exiting a marriage.
Can I ask why you dated for 9 years before getting married? Was there any specific reason behind that?
Well, we're always growing, we're always changing, right? Um, and especially in your 20s.
Hmm.
A lot of it also kind of came down to, and me, I can be a bit of a smartass from time to time. So my general, I guess thought process behind it was, well, hey, if it's not broke, why fix it?
Okay. Yeah.
We weren't looking to have kids yet. We didn't, commingle our finances. And even throughout our marriage, we didn't commingle our finances. The only thing that we had together, which of course made the divorce a lot easier and a lot cleaner, was the property that we owned,
Mm.
Okay. I
was,
feel like
uh,
that.
was the home.
Yeah.
What made you choose not to commingle finances?
I saw my dad go through a very ugly divorce that really kind of basically tore him apart as far as his finances go, and took him a
Mm.
long time to recover.
Mhm.
So, uh, with that, it made the most sense.
Yeah.
Like I was working and I was doing very well in my career. She was working, she was doing well in her career, and she was in charge of her money, I was in charge of mine. And of course we had the shared expenses and whatnot. But one of the things that I've noticed from a number of my friends, going through stuff, the biggest aspect or the biggest reason for divorce came down to money. So if we take that out of the equation, it gives a better chance.
Yeah.
So did you pay all the expenses on the house, or did
No,
you
we
guys
split
split
things
that?
straight down the middle.
Okay.
Like, for example, when we first got into or rather, when we got into our first property, I would pay for the mortgage and she would pay for all like the electricity, gas, that type of stuff.
Gotcha.
I was paying a little bit more because I made a little bit more, and
Mm.
then we kept that as we upgraded and got into a bigger place. So the mortgage, of course, was more. The electricity, gas, and all that stuff was stayed pretty even. So but it was able to work out pretty well considering I had advanced in my career and whatnot.
That's good. It it's good that your situation turned out better than a lot, because like you said, a lot of men just get fucked in divorce nowadays. And do you
I do.
think just having the separate bank accounts really saved you a lot of trouble from that?
It really did, because when it came to splitting and dividing assets, even though we still had to go and put everything out, and disclose everything,
Mm-hmm.
It was very simple. We were both very, very level-headed people, and one of the aspects that we did make sure to keep in the forefront is we want our kids to have the best, aspect possible. We keep them at the forefront. They're what's important here. And then everything else just kind of fell into place. So there wasn't any fighting about money. There wasn't, like what she wanted, she could have, what I wanted, I could have. And we didn't really have a whole lot of, back and forth on it.
That's good.
So what was it like getting back into the dating field after being with one woman for so long?
It was a nightmare. Uh, it was an absolute nightmare because I mean, think about it. I started dating her in 2003. That was before any of the dating apps, before any of that stuff.
Mm,
So kind of gives my age on this a little bit. Um, that was it was a culture shock. If you ever done a cold plunge or anything along those lines, think of it
Yeah.
like that. You just dive into that, and it's just a shock to the system. I was not ready for it. Uh, and honestly, I move a little slower. I'm a little more conservative,
mm-hmm.
and some of these girls do not talk for me.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, aren't we moving a little fast here? Like, what are you doing? Kind of
Mm.
thing.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. And being out of the dating pool for 18 years, there's so much that can change in just like a year, 2 years.
So the cold plunge of jumping back into the dating world. What
Yeah,
differences did you notice in almost 2 decades of dating or being out of the dating world?
the culture had changed very
Mhm.
significantly. Um, it was almost frowned upon to be a gentleman.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Um,
It's almost viewed as weakness
yeah,
or
exactly. And for me, I don't look at it as weakness at all.
oh no, of
Yeah.
course not.
It's and I'm trying to teach my kids this. Like you treat the other person with respect.
Hmm.
You
Mm,
know, you don't push things faster than they want to go. You don't allow them to push you faster than you want to go.
right.
You have to make sure that you set your boundaries properly, and that's one of the things that I've noticed that are few and far between now is nobody has boundaries.
It's funny, is I actually went on a date the other night and um it was a first date and I ordered the food and she pulled out her credit card like she was gonna pay. And that's kind of an awkward moment because what meshes that in. So I knocked the card out of her hand and then handed it to
That's great.
him. But
No, I'm of a very similar mindset. Of all the dates that I've gone on, I don't allow them to pay. I love it when they're offering to, but I still won't allow
mhm,
it.
yeah,
Uh, and
definitely.
that just kind of shows like, oh, hey, they're interested. They're not trying to take like advantage or anything like that because I've run across a few of those girls as well.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's it's just one of those aspects that I think is part of being a gentleman. You take care of the lady that you're with.
Yeah.
Like you're inviting them out and whatever. They spend a ton of money getting ready, the makeup, the hair, whatever it may be. Uh, Whereas for us, it's not that hard. Like shave half the time
Mm.
and just kind of oh, okay, you style your hair a little bit and move, and get
Yeah.
going. Whereas for them, it takes time. It takes they take hours to get ready. They put makeup on, and that stuff is extremely expensive. Having a daughter, I'm realizing that how expensive that really is.
Mm,
Um, so it's one of those aspects that's just like it's a way of showing respect. And like even if things don't go like, oh hey, like we're not feeling each other or whatever, it's still like, hey, you showed me enough respect to show up, to give it a shot. Didn't work out, no worries. And one of the things that I've noticed, especially because I've got a lot of friends that are female, um, and some of the horror stories I've heard from them, like a lot of guys are extreme creeps.
mm,
So
Mm.
just kind of showing them like, hey, look, not everybody out there, like even if things don't work out or don't go like fantastic, just showing them that hey, not everybody's a piece of shit. I really think goes a long way, at least
yeah.
for helping society.
Whenever you got back into it, was it a shock how I don't know what the word is, promiscuous the pictures and stuff are now as compared to whenever you were first dating?
Yeah, because back then we didn't have smartphones.
Mm.
Mhm.
God, I really feel old. Uh, yeah, back then we didn't have smartphones, so all of this stuff is not something that I was attuned to, not anything I was used to. And one of
Yeah.
the girls I was dating for a while, all of a sudden, like my phone blows up and like, oh hey, there's a video on here. What's this? Like, well, I'm glad my kids didn't open this. Jesus.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of girls, that's just like sending a smiley face emoji, sending like a nude or something nowadays.
I know,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things. Like, I've never, I grew up at the time where anything you put on the internet is there forever.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So, like, I'm like, no, you don't need to do this. That's quite all right. Like, I mean, that's like, I appreciate it. That's great, but
Yeah.
like, that's not necessary. Like, don't feel like you have to do anything like this.
So
But
I'm guessing
it's part
you,
of the culture now.
I'm guessing it was your first time using dating apps and stuff too after the divorce.
That nightmare
What was that like?
is terrible. Between the amount of filters that are on photos or old
Mm.
pictures or catfishes or people trying to solicit themselves, um, it just kind of opened my eyes a little bit to like, this is pretty terrible just
Mm.
across the board. Like, I don't know what happened to this culture, but this is not this is not what things should be like.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's just crazy because you have to have so many filters for yourself now, like women that you talk to, like specifically one, like the very first filter that I have is like I'll look at a girl's Instagram, and if it's
That's
an
exactly.
Instagram that I don't feel like I can show my mother, then I don't talk to them.
I wholeheartedly learned that the hard way.
Mm.
Well, how so?
Well, I was seeing a girl, and she had like a lot of bikini pics or whatever. Very attractive girl, very nice girl, but like a lot of like promiscuous type photos, on the thing, and lo and behold, that translates to their personality.
Yep, I learned that because it's like the Instagram looks nice for you,
Mhm.
to me, like okay, their Instagram, like they have a bunch of bikini pictures, like they're attractive.
Right.
If I start dating her, it's like okay, well everybody will know I'm dating this attractive person, but then you just have to separate it and be like, well, if she's just like showing everybody that, then like what value do I actually get from it?
Well, I think it kind of goes into a two form, question there. Like if she has that out there because she's advertising, she's trying to get a dude or whatever, and then as soon as she gets a dude, if she puts the thing on private, takes down photos or anything like that, that's one thing.
Mm,
But it's not. It doesn't go that simple. Do you have to ask them to do that, or do they do that on their own? Because it
yeah,
just goes to show you, like, as far as the person is. The one thing I have noticed through the dating apps and just life in general here over the last few years, a lot of women do tend to get a lot of validation through that, and it's
Sure.
almost
yeah,
like a drug to them. You
yeah,
know, I mean, and I was guilty of throwing things on social media back when I was younger, like phrases or whatever to get, and I got a validation from however many people liked it or commented on it or whatever. And I can only imagine that it's just exacerbated based off of, that because a lot of guys are creeps.
yeah,
Well, it's female nature too to probably get more satisfaction from the attention and
Right.
validation.
That's
I
exactly
think
where I was going with
I
that.
have I have some sympathy for women nowadays because on one hand, they're told to be modest, have a low body count, et cetera. But then they go out to say bars, clubs, or go online, and all the attention goes to the women that are dressed provocatively, dancing provocatively, putting themselves out there. And they're like, well, but how come these girls get all the attention, but then they tell me that this is the girl I should be? And so they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. Well, how much skin do I really show to get notices? And if I want the really successful, handsome man to notice me, do I have to show more than I am? And so I think they have it hard too in a different way. They're filtering through tons of creeps, like you said,
Yeah.
and they kind of get option overload, I think, nowadays.
Say it also depends on what they're looking for.
Hmm.
So if they're just looking to like, oh hey, they're just trying to have a good time or whatever, then they're dressing promiscuously or whatever is going to attract that type of thing. But if they're looking for like a husband or whatever, dressing provocatively and acting as such, sure, you'll get dudes to fuck you, but you're not gonna get like somebody who's going to want to keep you.
Yeah. And it's a hard lesson to learn that just because a
It
guy is
is.
giving you lustful attention doesn't mean he's giving you loving attention.
Exactly. And there's a very big difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And it may not necessarily seem that way in the first few dates. You kind of have to be around a guy for a little bit to see what his true intentions are for you as a girl.
Exactly.
What are the top 2 or 3 qualities you look for in a potential girlfriend?
Intelligence.
Mhm.
That's very big. I mean, I'm at the age now to where looks are starting to fade. And if I'm dating somebody my age, looks are going to be fading. Like that's just nature of the beast, right? We're at an, or at least I'm at an age, and girls that I'm dating are typically going to be in their either late 20s to early 40s. So that's the general um, age range that I'm looking at. Pretty much not. I'm not really too crazy on that, but I want them to have enough life experience and enough intelligence to where like I can hold a conversation with them. At the same time, I also want them to be able to take care of themselves to where like, hey, if it does go a very long term, we get into our 50s or 60s, there's not a lot of health complications or anything along those lines.
Mm,
Yeah.
Also, I want them to be able to carry themselves with a bit of a poise to where they don't embarrass me.
Yeah.
yeah. That's important.
Let's see here. I mean, common interests are always good, but there's also something that's to be said about opposite attracting, because I don't necessarily know. I by no means do I know anything, or do I know everything.
Hmm.
Um, so if I can learn something from them, if they can learn stuff from me, just a good counterbalance.
It's kind of weird. It's like I want the person that's like just there and sweet and innocent and wants to take care of me, but at the same time, it's fun to have that person that's like just pushing you to the next level alongside with you.
I would agree with that.
I like somebody that's physically fit. I always tell people like I'm never going to date a fat chick. It's just a standard and a boundary that I have for myself. I value my body and I know what it took to get me to this point, and I think that they should have the same self-respect to do that for themselves. I do like people that haven't really had much life experience. I think that's where we're a little bit different. Given I'm younger too, I like more naive people that I can kind of show them the world and let them experience it with me and build those memories along the way.
Man, I kind of agree with everything you guys said. I I definitely value things like intelligence, loyalty, um,
Mm,
taking care of your body, some having some kind of healthy hobby. The two really that I look for the most now, especially with today's culture, is how much personal accountability does the woman take
Oh,
for
that's a big
herself?
one. That's a very big one.
Because it's so easy to escape accountability, I think, for women nowadays and just blame someone else. And
I
then the
wouldn't even
second,
say just for women. I think that's just a societal problem.
oh, it's expected of men and looked down upon of men, but it's not, that standard is not held quite to the same for women, I feel like, at least in America right now.
mm.
But it just shows a lot of personal growth and character. And then the second thing I look for is what are her circle of girlfriends like? Because those are
Oh,
probably
that's a
the
good
biggest
one.
influences in her life. And if she is maybe a great girl, but her 3 friends are not really good influences, there's a high degree of likelihood those friends will steer her in a bad direction.
Mm,
And if you believe differently than they do, it's basically they're your enemy, and it's their opinion versus yours, and almost always the circle of girlfriends is going to win out. So those two alone are something that now I really pay attention to as I get older and
yeah.
date more.
There is something to be said about birds of a feather flock together.
So what is it like dating with children?
It's difficult because I have my kids half of the time, so it's kind of a week on, week off type of aspect.
Hmm.
Of course, myself and their mother are very accommodating of each other. So if I have something, she's happy to help me out, and vice versa. That's one of the aspects that I forgot to mention is if I'm dating somebody, would they be a good influence for my kids?
Of course.
Oh,
And would
yeah.
they be, uh, is that somebody that I can bring around them that they will, that I have no problem with them emulating?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole
as
nother
well as
wrinkle to the.
would they be a good potential stepmother to them?
Yeah. Like, do her ideologies align with something that you want instilled in your children growing up?
Exactly.
Mm.
Do you find women apprehensive to step into a stepmother role?
I don't actually. I have not had that issue at all.
Okay.
Um, most, from my experience at least, it should having kids and being a good dad, at least that's what I've been called. Um, I want to be rather humble about it, but I do think that I do a good job at that. It shows different characteristics that are, at least from my experience, shown to be very attractive towards women. Like, oh, hey, if I have a kid with him, he's not going to run out. He's going to be there. He's going to take care of me. He's going to take care of the kid, etc. But at the same time, uh, the time frame aspect. Like, I am very cautious on when I introduce or if I introduce my kids to
Mhm.
somebody that I'm dating. Uh, for
Well,
me, I vet them out for at least a year before doing that.
mm,
I'm not going to just introduce somebody, right off the bat unless there's a major issue or something going on that is completely out of my control.
Yeah, like an emergency or something.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
Um, it's one of those aspects. Another thing that this has been a turnoff for some. Uh, if I'm going to introduce my kids to a potential um, you know, the potential, person who's going to be in their life for a long period of time, one of the first aspects is they have to meet my ex-wife
Mm.
mm,
because and it's the same way on her end. It's an agreement that we have. Like if somebody's going to be brought into the kids' lives, we got to meet them, and that way, like, hey, if she wants to do her research on the person, or if I want to do my research on the person on her end, there's nothing stopping, no issues, and that type of thing.
Have you
Because
had to
again,
encounter that yet, where she brings a potential step
yes,
dad or mate? What was that like?
yes. Um, it's a weird feeling, but
yeah.
it's like, hey, I know that she will be a better mom to the kids if she's happy, just as I'll be a better dad to the kids, if I'm happy. So,
Man,
hey, like we had a good run, no hard feelings. So, we're continuing with our lives. So if she's doing well and she's, happy with the kids and she's got somebody who, will be good to them,
you want to get married again?
to the right person, I would not be opposed.
Is it something where you would do everything back the same way, like under uh the government, the legal documents and everything, or would it be
It
something where you just are in agreement with that person?
It depends. It depends. Agreements are only as good as the people who are making them.
Mm, yeah.
If I were to get married again, for one, I would definitely have a prenup just to err on the side of caution. People today don't necessarily have the same honor as they did, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, that does not necessarily mean that, and it's not just for my own sake. It would be to protect her as well,
Hmm.
right? I've also seen a lot of people get screwed over when it came to children in the aspect. So of course that would be put in there. And in Texas, if you're not married, you as a male, you lose a lot of your rights just right off the bat. It's
Really?
with the family court system. It's not written down. It's just the way that it is.
What rights specifically do you lose from not being married to the
Well, you
mother?
don't necessarily lose the rights. They just err on the side of the mother more often than
Mm, okay.
not.
I didn't know that.
Now
Just
that is changing,
specifically,
and that is changing. That is changing slowly. It's now
okay.
more based off of the people. And if you have uh, a girl that is, you know, mad or vindictive or just trying to get like money out of you, it can be a very ugly situation. A lot of times, those things don't show themselves until it's too late. Would I do everything exactly the same? I don't think I would. I would do things a little differently from what I've learned and what I've seen.
Yeah.
I got exceedingly lucky the first go around.
Yeah.
I picked my kid's mom very wisely, even though things didn't work out, and in the long run.
Hmm.
Um, would I will lightning strike twice? I mean, I'm not necessarily a betting man, but you have to hedge your bets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if your home had a 56% chance of burning to the ground and you didn't get insurance, you'd look like a fool. I think a prenuptial agreement is kind of like insurance for.
Well, a wise person told me that, you don't listen to people's words, you listen to people's actions.
Mm.
So I'm not opposed to it. And say, for example, if I'm dating somebody and they don't ever want to get married and they don't have any issue with that, that's cool. And just be together forever in that type of way. One of the or I'm sorry, well, not really positive, but just one of the realistic aspects to be getting into a legal marriage is you don't have to worry about power of attorney. You don't have to worry about any of those things. If something happens, like say, for example, the motorcycle uh, issue that we were talking about, if the person gets into a motorcycle wreck, you don't have to go and find paperwork to show that, hey, you're power of attorney. No, hey, you're the spouse of the person, so you can make whatever critical medical decisions at the time without having to jump through a bunch of hoops.
So I want to talk a little bit about your Ironmaning.
Oh yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah. So you said
The
110
reason I have a
mile.
bad back and bad knees.
Have you ever seen any like car crashes or things with the bicyclists on the road?
I've been hit by a car.
Really?
Yeah, I got up and walked away. I kind of felt like a badass for that. But
Like during the race or just?
no, not during the race.
Oh,
This is just
okay.
training. Let's see here. I did one in New Orleans. It was a half. It was a 70.3.
Well, for
Uh,
somebody that doesn't know like what an Ironman is,
oh yeah, let me go into
what
that.
exactly is it?
Okay, so a triathlon in general is, and this encompasses many different distances. It's swimming, then biking, then running. They go most dangerous to least dangerous. The Ironman is a 2.1 mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, followed by a 26.1 mile marathon.
Oh my gosh.
Hence the bad back and bad knees. Uh, and I've done multiple, and they have multiple different distances of triathlons, stemming from very short to the ultra long that I just described, and everywhere in between. Most the ones that I enjoy the long distance ones because of the endorphins you get out of it.
Mm. What is that
As
like?
well, I'm sorry.
What is that like?
Well, I'm not a drug user. Never have been. Never touched anything other than alcohol, as far as any type of mind altering, substance. Um, and let's just say that, like, I could have the worst possible thing happen to me, and it would not affect me.
Mm.
Mm.
Right. So I don't know if that is akin to like what people feel like when they're like high or on something, but it was literally amazing because your body is just flooded with endorphins.
Yeah. How long does something like that take? How long
You
is
have
this race?
you have 16 hours to complete it.
16 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's great. How do you eat during that? Do you eat anything? Do you have little gel
Yeah.
cups?
Well, you have to. Well, you
I would
don't eat no
assume.
water, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, but like on the bike, like I'll take like sandwiches. The first one that I did was when my daughter was 3 months old. I didn't finish that one, but
Mm.
I also didn't want. It was in a different country, and I didn't necessarily want to go to a hospital in a different country. So I bowed out by my own accord
Hmm.
during the run aspect. But like I had baby food, I had just like the pouches that you would give
Mm.
toddlers, bananas, all types of different stuff.
Yeah. What is the training like for something like that?
A nightmare. Uh, an absolute nightmare. Now, honestly, it was a lot of fun. You start out, with a small distance. It's usually about a 5 to 6 day a week training with one day of rest.
Mm.
Some days you're swimming, some days you're running, some days you're biking, some days you're biking and running, some days you're biking and swimming. Um, it really just depends on how you want to go about it. Luckily, I was very fortunate. I had a very good group of trainers who were helping me.
Yeah.
Uh, and they would just basically give me the workout and I would just salute and execute.
I feel like the swimming part would scare me the most. The long distance one, you said how many miles?
2.1.
See, that's crazy. And can you like stop and rest during it, or is it just 2.1 miles, like just going?
I mean, it's the ones that I did were all open water. So,
Okay.
like, I mean, you can stop and just kind of float and wade, and people did that all the time.
Hmm.
Um, but like you can't like stand up or go lay down or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Once you get out of the water, there's a transition over to the bike, and a lot of people would rest during that time.
Mm.
Personally, like my swim was my strongest aspect. It was my strongest suit. When I was training, I ended up getting up to being able to do 3.5 miles in one sitting.
Wow.
Wow. That's a
Um,
lot.
yeah, tell me about it. But of course, I'd get out of the water like all pale and like just basically dead. But
Mm-hmm.
it was fun. I enjoyed that. Swimming was my favorite part.
Were
Like
you
I've
a
always
swimmer
been a
in like high school or college or anything?
Oh
Or
God,
it?
no, God, no. It was just something that I enjoyed. Now I did a little bit of wrestling when I was in high school.
Mm.
Hmm.
What made
So,
you decide that you wanted to do something like that, like a big endurance race?
well, I was never a runner. When I was in my 20s, I got out of college, got into the job world, started seeing money like I had never seen before. Uh, going from poverty to middle class very, very quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's honestly kind of a self-induced poverty, but it's part of building yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of went a little nuts, like I just started eating, metabolism was changing. That's when I started drinking a little bit. Um, and I just kind of, I blew up for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Right. So at one point I was playing flag football with some friends and I went to cut and my legs planted, but my body kept going
Mm.
and I completely like tore my knee up. I had to
Ah,
have surgery on it. Severed the ACL, torn the meniscus in the knee, and I was not able to walk for about 6 weeks after surgery.
Oh, geez.
So I made myself determined while sitting there like, hey, I can't walk. This is not fun. What happens if I get older and I can't walk? I don't want to have any type of regrets.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
I had the surgery in January, and I said by this by the end of the year I'm going to run a half marathon. Never done anything like that before. The furthest I'd ever run in any given sitting was probably a 5K, so
Yeah.
3.1 miles.
You just build from there, huh?
Well, while training for that, I was dropping weight like pretty significantly, and I enjoyed the endorphins, enjoyed like the camaraderie with the group I was training with and running the races with, or the small races, then up to the half marathon. And they're like, running is terrible. Like I don't like this,
Yeah.
but I enjoyed the aspects. I enjoyed the physicality of it. I enjoyed the health benefits. So like, what would be akin to this? So that following May, I did my first triathlon.
Is it like what kind of mental resilience do you have to do something like that? Because the human body is capable of incredible things.
It
Like
is.
it's capable of things that people don't even realize. So I feel like something like that is a much bigger mental game than it is physical.
It is. You can push through stuff, and I think that's one of the reasons why I bowed out on the first Ironman that I attempted.
Mm-hmm.
My mental game was not there. So
Gotcha.
I took 2 years. I worked. I continued to build my endurance, my speed, and more importantly, my mental fortitude.
Mm-hmm.
As I was going through that, I was like, I did things that were like, okay, what am I afraid of? I'm deathly afraid of heights. So all right, cool. Let's go bungee jumping. Let's go, do like endurance races. We have to jump off of, super high things into water or whatever, the things that just would scare the shit out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's just kind of how I kind of built that up to be able to push through when I hit that wall on the next time that I attempted.
Yeah.
Did you do anything specifically to train your mindset or that mental toughness you talked about?
But that's what I did to train it.
Mm.
It's just do all the things that
Force
you didn't
yourself.
want to do.
Yeah.
Right. Just force myself to do what I did not want to do. Force
Mm.
myself to do, but I knew that like, okay, I know that I'm not going to die if I do this. Like, just, the conscious mind says like, hey, I will survive this.
Yeah.
But the unconscious mind's like, you're out of your fucking mind. Like, no.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's just the type of stuff that I would do. And, part of that aspect is doing some of the long distance training. So like I would, like on either a Saturday or Sunday, I would go out and do 80 or 100 miles on a bike. which is, I mean, just in normal conditions is terrible. But then I would go out and do it in the middle of Texas summer,
Yeah.
and not in the morning either, in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
So just like, and even though like I know I'm not going to go at the speed of that, I know I'm not like during the race, I know I'm not going to have those types of conditions. Just being able to and making myself push through it, because like, hey, worst case scenario, I have to get back to the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see yourself doing something like that ever again, or is that part of your life kind of behind you now?
I want to. I really
Mm.
do want to. Right now, I'm working on strengthening my knees and my back, because it did take a toll, and
Yeah.
all the last one that I did was before the plague, um, or the pandemic, or however you want to call it.
Hmm.
So most of the races and everything, were shut down during that, and that's of course when I went through a divorce. I also lost a parent during that time frame, so I went through a bit of depression, and I know that's kind of where I took something from somebody who I consider a mentor, even though I may have never met them. Um, Depression's all in the mind, and pushing through that.
Well, so how did you
And
push through the depression?
I took control of it.
Mhm.
I took control of the things that I thought that I couldn't control. I there is a number of aspects that, well, starting off, I ended up, like I wrote down, I got a sheet of paper, I wrote down every single thing that was causing me problem, causing me grief, causing me to feel these types of ways. And I crossed out all the things that I couldn't control. And then I just started systematically going through and control, and like, okay, my finances aren't where they are or where I want them to be. Cool. How do I adjust that? Cool. And then start problem solving that way, and then executing. I think that for me, action was the biggest step. My body wasn't where I wanted it to be. All right, cool. Let's start. Let me get back in the gym. Let me figure this thing out.
Hmm.
Getting my diet right, and that's still a struggle, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Well, there's an art to it, to
There is.
learning and accepting the things that you can and cannot control, differentiating the two, and then going about life in a way where you change the things that you can control, and you have to just accept the things that you can't and move on from them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also getting through my head, and I can be a little stubborn when it comes to this.
Mhm.
Um, Not letting other people's opinions matter to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that the majority of people struggle with, because we're social animals. We want to be
We are.
accepted by
Mhm.
people. And so that's something that is very difficult to do.
It is. It is. So, yeah, I mean that's basically how I kind of dealt with all of that. But yeah, strengthening my back right now. Strength. And I know we kind of went down the rabbit hole there a little bit, but strengthening my back, strengthening my knees, and trying to get back to it. I'm hoping within the next year or two I can jump back into that sport.
Yeah.
But it is unfortunately very time consuming. And the last time I did that, I did have a partner there with the kids to be able to assist with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the training is very time consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the drawbacks of marathons or Ironmans is just the hours it takes
It
to
does, yeah.
train.
So if I'm going to go out and I'm like, oh, I've got to spend 8 hours on the bike today,
Yeah.
that's 8 hours that I don't have with my kids.
Mhm.
If it's my week to have them.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I go about dealing with that? You know,
Mm-hmm.
when my daughter was very little, she's my eldest, and I was doing the training. I would go out, I would do 8 hours, on the bike or whatever. I wouldn't. There's no issue, because hey, kids with their mom, no problem. But then when I got back, time to be super dad, even though I'm exhausted.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So what's your struggle with diet right now?
with diet, oh, I love to eat.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Food's delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but and that's one of the things I probably would have done far better if I had my diet in order when I was doing all of this, when I was doing all the physical activity. But I'm just now here within the last 6 months getting my diet correct, and it's been a struggle, trying to understand exactly how many calories I need, how much protein, how many carbohydrates, how much fat, and getting it to a level that I want. But I think I finally kind of I wouldn't say mastered, but I think I finally am on the right path as far as getting to where I want to be with that. So, no, here's hoping. But it
What's
can always,
what's your like ideal weight you're trying to get down to?
well, it depends. It really depends. I'm not looking at necessarily an ideal weight. I'm looking at an ideal fitness.
Yeah.
Right. So like, you can see bodybuilders out there that are, 230, 240, 250 pounds, but they have, minuscule amount of fat.
Yeah.
Like for me, that's far too big.
Hmm.
Like if I could maintain, like when I was doing the races, I was about 180.
Hmm.
Right now I'm sitting at about 205.
No, it's not too far off.
No, it's not too far off. I mean, considering in October I was about 230,
Wow.
I'm definitely
Yeah.
moving in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
think that ideal just kind of sitting weight would probably be between 190 and 195.
So, whenever it comes to your professional life, do you see yourself ever switching industries and going into anything else, or are you pretty solidified in what you do now and want to continue to do that for the rest of your days?
I don't think that you could ever be solidified.
Mm.
Okay.
You never know what opportunities are going to present themselves to you.
Hmm.
You never know, what type of industry might spark your interest.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I never turned down a conversation.
Okay.
So I don't know what I don't know, and everybody has different experiences that could possibly enhance. Well, if say for example, I find something I really enjoy, um, or that I enjoy more than what I'm doing currently, I would certainly entertain that.
Yeah.
At the same time, am I actively looking for that? No, I'm not.
So what are your goals in the next probably 5 years?
Um, Stay alive. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the big ones.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think so. Uh, I would like to get back into the triathlons within the
Yeah.
Mhm.
next 5 years. I think that's a realistic aspect.
Yeah. You're already on the right path for it too, it sounds like.
I think so, but I also want to do it to the extent to where I don't mess up my back or my knees. Like I
Mhm.
Yeah.
enjoy playing with my kids. When it comes time, I want to be able to play with my grandkids,
Mm.
Yeah.
and I want to be able to play with whatever other kids that I end up having,
Hmm.
um, or not. Who knows, right?
Right.
So, I don't want to do something that would take away or make anything degrade any further than what it already has.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you going to do shorter distance triathlons to kind of save on the
Uh,
training time?
I don't know. I really don't know. Right now, I'm concentrating on getting my body back to where I want it to be, and then I'm going to look at logistics as far as
Mm.
okay, if I want to do this, how am I going to go about doing it? Because
Yeah.
if I want to go do another Ironman, I'll find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like for me, it's mind over matter. Like I can do literally anything I put my mind to, in my
Uh,
humble opinion.
yeah. I love
Um,
that.
uh, uh, Within reason. Like I can't go out and like jump out a window and pretend I can fly.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as pushing myself, uh, adjusting myself, adjusting, logistics, like I will figure it out. That's one of the things that I have, or that people at least have complimented me on, that I can do things that people like. There's no way in hell you could do that.
Hmm.
When I was first doing the triathlons, you have no idea how many naysayers I had within my friend group, within my family. Just like just being told that like you're foolish for even attempting this.
Hmm.
And then when I completed when I did the full Ironman and completed it, how proud they were.
Yeah.
Because and that's one of the lessons that I learned through doing all this. You cannot let people tell you that you can't do something because their mind can't grasp it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that translates not just to or not just through athletics, but through business, through entrepreneurship, um, investing, whatever it may be. Like if you can find the right avenue, there's not one single way to get to the finish line, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And just because some people can't necessarily see the path that you're taking or understand the path that you're taking doesn't mean that you're taking the wrong path.
Yeah. Well, Neil, something we like to ask all of our guests is for like one golden nugget piece of advice. So for you specifically, like through all your life experiences and everything that you've gone to up until this point, like if you could go back to your younger self, like just graduated college, based on everything that you know now, what would be like the one piece of advice that you would give the younger version of yourself?
All right, I've got a few pieces of advice there.
Let's hear
I'm
it.
going to start off with the smartass one. When my friend tries to get me into Bitcoin in 2012, listen to him.
Yeah.
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 But I couldn't and this just goes back to what I was saying. I couldn't grasp it. I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I dismissed it. And like now that I understand it, I was like, well, that was foolish.
Mm. Yeah.
So and he did it and was wildly successful at it, and very proud of him for it.
Yeah.
But no, like one piece of advice that I could give myself, I don't think there's really one piece of advice, because I've done a lot with my life thus far,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that I still have a lot more to do.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily know that I would change anything, because it would take away from the person that I am. The struggles that I've gone through and whatnot, they build you up. At least as a man, the struggles that we go through,
Yeah.
they help build your character. So I wouldn't be the person that I am. I wouldn't be as mature as I am without the trials and tribulations that help bring about that.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think probably, gosh, that is a very difficult question as far as like if I were to give one piece of advice.
Yeah.
Of course, when I was going through the divorce, I was like, don't get married.
Mm.
But that's a smart ass answer.
Yeah.
I definitely, if I had to go back and not do it again, I would do, at least as far as the marriage aspect, I would have done that all the same, because it ended up turning out very, very well.
That's good.
Even though it didn't end up the way that I wanted it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
I got my kids out of it. I had a much stronger person for it, etc. And don't be scared when things don't go your way.
Yeah.
Well, Neil, this was great. I appreciate you talking to us.
Absolutely. Happy to. It was a great
Yeah.
conversation, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.